Well, welcome to Blueprints and Breakthroughs, a REIT Institute series where we basically unlock the blueprints of success set by today's industry professionals and explore the breakthroughs of tomorrow's commercial real estate leaders. Our guest today is Michelle Pink. She's Principal Regional Leader of Property Tax at Ryan. She has over 15 years of commercial real estate experience where she concentrated on building an outstanding team of real estate professionals and volunteering towards expanding the talent pool in commercial real estate, which is very fitting for what we're doing at the REIT Institute. So welcome to our series, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you got that right off my LinkedIn, and it's definitely exactly what I would say I like doing. So,
Yep. LinkedIn is a pretty good resource.
shocking how many people don't check it out first.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into it. So how did you get into the commercial real estate industry?
So I think most people do it rather unintentionally, at least people in my vintage. I call myself an elder millennial, but I am still a millennial for all you young folks watching. I landed backwards into it. Like all good teachers' kids, I was supposed to be a lawyer. I had great grades in high school, and I took on university with a path to become a lawyer. So I actually did my undergrad in history and First Nation studies. So I have a double major in that from UBC.
Nice.
But about third year of university, I started doing some part-time work, some analyst work for a commercial real estate agent actually in Vancouver.
Cool.
Pulling comps.
While living in Alberta?
While living in Vancouver. So I actually graduated from UBC. And so I started doing a little bit of work for him, and I kind of stepped back for a second and I'm like, wow, I kind of really like what this guy does. And I like the times and the hours and, like I like the lifestyle that he has. And
Yeah.
why do I want to be a lawyer? And I kind of like took a step back and thought about it. And it was actually third year where I decided I wanted to actually pivot towards commercial real estate. So I finished out my undergrad and I decided not to pursue a law degree afterwards, and I went directly into commercial real estate. So that's how I landed into it, completely unintentionally, through a part-time gig while I was going to university. And I mean, the rest is history. I do need to update that LinkedIn. I've almost 20 years in now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was working that out yesterday. So I've been in the industry for 18 years now. So right out of university.
Wow.
So I've been very fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know you said that you were working towards being a lawyer. Was that by your own internal drive or is
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Expectations of family.
Completely understood.
But I think so many of us, I don't want to say it's a trap. It was, I have many friends that are lawyers and it's an exceptional field.
Yeah.
But it was the expectation, it was the next level up from my parents who were both teachers. So it was like kind of the next step in I guess like the class or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That I was going to be the success story and be a lawyer, and then therefore you're successful.
You're right.
And so it took a little bit of inner work to work out of that for sure.
I get that.
So how did your parents take it when you said, I'm not going to become a lawyer, I'm going to do this commercial real estate thing?
I mean, my mom handled it really well. I guess she, like all parents, want you to be happy, and that's ultimately what it came down to. But I think there was a little bit of disappointment, really for themselves and what they saw as their future. I think they wanted to tell their friends that they had a lawyer as a daughter and like how proud, etc. But I mean, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. But the path that I've been able to forge through commercial real estate has just been like an amazing journey. And I know my mom, seeing the journey that I've had through this industry and through this career now, I know she's so proud. Yeah. So, and unfortunately my dad actually passed away when I was quite a bit younger. So, but my stepdad is just as proud. Yeah. And so I think it was me too that needed to get over the expectations of, what success is.
Right.
Reimagine that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Now, you talked about your pathway that you've been able to forge in commercial real estate. Walk us through that pathway.
Okay, well, like all people in commercial real estate, I think many of us start as an analyst. So just like everybody else, I started
grunt work
analyst. I pulled more comps than I'd like to admit. And I didn't have an in. I knew nobody in the industry,
Yeah.
aside from the gentleman I worked with in Vancouver at the time, and as soon as I graduated, I did move back to Alberta because that was the land of opportunity at the time. That was 2006. So I moved to the land of opportunity, and it has been so good to me. So I started as an analyst, worked for a firm called RealNet back in the day, got my bearings, which was a great place to learn all of the things. And then from there, I did a small stint in brokerage.
You're selling stuff?
I sold stuff with Mr. David
Interesting.
Wallach, who, like it or not, he still is my mentor to this day.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah, he calls me his assistant and I call him my driver. So now we attend all these events and whatnot, I guess more as equals and
Right.
and business partners in some things. And so that's been a lovely journey. So I spent about a year and a half there. I knew selling wasn't for me. And I moved into asset management. Asset management ticked a lot of boxes for me in terms of getting to do a little bit of everything, and every day is different, which is something that I really enjoy. I think I, like most people, can get a little bored sometimes, and asset management is not boring. So that was a really exceptional opportunity, and I worked for a private landlord and then a public landlord.
Yeah.
When my public landlord actually ended up selling the company, at the time I took a little bit of stock and decided what I wanted to do. And I decided I wanted to work, my next role, I wanted it to be based on the firm rather than the job. And so I kind of took stock of what I was doing and where I wanted to be. And that's when I pivoted to property taxes. And I actually started working for a firm that I had previously hired as a consultant. So it really goes to say, don't burn any bridges.
Yeah.
It's
And,
Very small world.
Commercial real estate is incredibly small,
Yeah.
especially in Alberta.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting into places like Toronto, Vancouver, New York, you're in a bit bigger cycle, but Alberta is infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And conceptually, because like going from call it more brokerage to asset management to property tax, like it's different parts of, granted it's all real estate, but different parts of real estate. Did you find that it was like a big difference going from the different spots, or did it kind of compound on itself?
It was definitely a compound effect.
Yeah.
So, like you definitely learn as you go. And I was able to take so many of those skills from each role that I've had and move it into the next. I definitely think where I'm at right now and the role that I play is definitely a culmination of all of those skills. And I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at without every single one of them, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
You never know where those journeys are going to lead you. So definitely be open to the opportunity. As I was having this conversation with somebody I mentored the other day, and she's looking at some options and some opportunities, and it's like the times that I've taken the leap were the best choices I ever made.
Right.
But I've also had the security of a great network,
Right.
wonderful mentors, and a small community to kind of have my back through it. And that's what commercial real estate has been for me. I know I can call up an Andrel,
Yeah.
or I can call up a friend, or I have those opportunities now through commercial real estate.
Right. And if you don't mind me asking, because I think a lot of people, depending on where they are in their current life cycle, in terms of trying to figure out what they're going to do for
Yeah.
work. And like, especially at, I can recall for myself at the age of 17, 18, give or take, it's like, you got to figure it out now. So if
I had to be a lawyer. What were you supposed to be?
exactly the same.
A few of us land here, right?
Yeah. But like, I think for a lot of people, it's interesting to kind of hear that it took you some time, and it was even post-university before you found
Yep.
the area that you're in. So if you don't mind me asking, like how old were you roughly when you found property tax as the space that you ended up in ultimately and
It
staying
was
in?
9 years ago because I remember I just had my second child who just turned 9. So I vividly remember it because I had decided to take out a package from the firm that I was working at while I was on mat leave, which was an interesting choice. I was also the only income earner in our family. My husband has been a stay-at-home dad for the last 12 years, which is, again, brought to us by commercial real estate and my career that I've been able to have. So it was a big choice and big decisions that needed to be made. But it was exactly 9 years ago where I made that last leap.
Yeah.
And again, it was because I had the network, I knew I had the skills, and it was just about finding the right place to be where I wanted to be.
Yeah. And I think, for our scholars who've come through the program, it's been like that. They're always kind of trying to figure
don't-
that
Yeah.
part out.
You don't
right?
have
Like,
to have it figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, so I just turned 40, so I'd have been 31 when I kind of landed in where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I still think, maybe 10 years from now, maybe I'll be a landlord. I mean, I own some residential properties, but, maybe we'll do some development. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't know where that's going to evolve to.
Right.
And I'd always be open. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's great to hear because I think you're right. Like there is that pressure
Absolutely.
at 17, 18 years old to be like, you need to know what you're going to
It's-
do
yeah. Right.
for the rest of your life.
There's
Yeah.
that fear of wasting time, wasting money, wasting people's resources, like their time on you.
Yeah.
And that fear of disappointing somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that more than anybody.
Yeah.
It still percolates in the back of my brain from now and again. But ultimately, you have to make those decisions for you, and it's okay if you make a bad one.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's just a step in the right direction towards what the right one's going to be.
Right.
So
Yeah. And even looking at your trajectory, you kind of jumped from different parts of commercial real estate,
Absolutely.
but they all
connected. Yeah.
to land you where you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, many of the people that I've either worked with or worked for in the past now, I work, like I'm a consultant for. And,
Yeah.
and so like you weave that web. Everything is interconnected, especially in commercial real estate, but there is an endless opportunity in terms of how many roles there are out there. So
Exactly.
maybe, I mean, everyone thinks of commercial real estate as being synonymous with a broker. Someone that's
Selling.
wearing the flashy suit
Yeah, yeah.
and you're selling the big buildings, but
Right.
there's so many other things out there in terms of we might be a small group of people, but the opportunities in terms of what's out there is endless.
So you've had a very, I would say, interesting pathway into commercial real estate. If you were to narrow it down to one thing that you're proud of in your career, what would it be?
This. My work with organizations like REIT, with Crew, I look at that as my real legacy in, making the world a better place. I want my daughter to have pay equity if she ever wants to be in this industry. I want people, graduates of the REIT Institute to not be the onlies in the room. And maybe we'll get into that. But, I've been the only. I've been the only woman. I've been the youngest. I've been the only in many situations, and I really want to help be intentional about making that better in our industry because there's a lot of work still to do. So yeah, that's what I think I'm most proud of.
That's awesome. Well, you are a mentor for our very first cohort in Calgary. You have actually been one of our bigger supporters in Calgary to really get us out there. What are you hoping to pass on as a mentor to these scholars in this first cohort in Calgary?
I think the two lessons, that don't be so hard on yourself. You don't have to have it all figured out right now.
Yeah.
And I really want them to see the opportunity in commercial real estate in terms of lifestyle, in terms of pathways, in terms of, financial security. It has just been such a great industry for me that I want to introduce that to other people. So that's a big part of it. I'm also very intentional about, as my LinkedIn profile says, building these great teams. Something we talk a lot about at my firm. I work on our group called Ryan Mosaic, which is akin to a DEI group. And so I work with a team there. And something we talk a lot about is meritocracy. But you can't have a meritocracy without inclusion. And what we lack in commercial real estate right now, I think, is still a lot of the inclusion factor because we haven't been intentional enough about making sure we're casting the net out and getting all the talent in. So the belief about a meritocracy is, well, the best person gets the job. The best person for the job gets the job.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But if you're only including 10% of the population,
Right.
are you really getting the best person
missing
every time?
something, right.
You're missing 90% of the population.
Right.
And so that's something that, my firm's being really intentional about over the last few years, especially. And so when I saw what you guys were doing at REIT Institute in Edmonton, I'm like, absolutely, it sings my song. Like that's what we want to be a part of. That's what we want to support. So
So you talked a little bit about being the only in the room. would you say there's been progress since you first got into the industry compared to now? And how did it feel like to be an only in that room?
I give a little giggle because I don't know. It's the one step forward, two steps back. Sometimes it feels like. So I am still an only sometimes. And I consider myself a strong, independent,
Yes.
female leader, all of the things. And it is still a lonely place sometimes to be the only. And it can mess with you a little bit. And so to me, like, I guess that's why I also have become so ingrained in crew, and now I want to work with the Reed Institute as well. So people don't have to feel like that. I imagine if I feel like that, how are other people feeling as well? So, it's not a good feeling. At least for me, it hasn't been my experience to always be a good feeling, but it's also added fuel to my intentionality around the work that we do.
So I think the last question I really had was looking at your experience as an only, and looking at the scholars who are coming through this program who might be considering commercial real estate. What would your piece of advice be for them?
Oh, what would my piece of advice be? Enjoy it. Have fun. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Everyone, so many people want to help and mentor and be a part of your journey and your success.
Yeah.
And I owe so much of my success to my mentors and the people that, gave a hand along the way. I want to say a hand, not a handout. People, if you're willing to put in the work, people are willing to put in the work into you as well. And so that's kind of my advice. Like, you get what you give.
Yeah.
In anything, right?
Yeah.
So if you're giving your effort, if you're giving your all, then people around you are going to see that.
Yeah.
The good people. There's so many good people in this industry that want to expand it and want to do great things. So that, enjoy the ride though, and don't be afraid to pivot or make a different decision.
Right.
Maybe you thought you wanted to be a broker, but actually you want to be an accountant.
Yeah.
Or you want to be in property taxes, or you want to be an asset manager. There's so many things that don't be afraid to pivot with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for just sharing your journey with us, giving us a little glimpse and giving some really words of wisdom for our scholars and even for just anybody who's thinking about getting into this space. So.
Well, I appreciate that. My 12-year-old can't fathom who would want to listen to me at this point. So I hope I give some nuggets of wisdom to people that are not related to me.
No, you've been awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, guys.
So this series is brought to you by Ryan. They are an award-winning global tax services firm achieving international recognition and market leadership through client service excellence, workplace innovation, and employee development. So thank you, Ryan.